Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
However, there have been a certain percentage of this volume of reports that have been made by credible observers of relatively incredible things.
2, 1, 0, all engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Tower clear. Here we go.
But other sightings apparently were taken more seriously.
And one in particular, an incident called the Rendlesham Forest Incident, also known as Britain's Roswell. This was in 1980, shortly after Christmas, when a few American airmen who were stationed in the UK reported seeing a UFO.
A huge, solid, diamond-shaped object they described as 100 foot long, hovering silently in the sky above them.
There is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone, whatever that means.
Understands UFOs are real. This is a technology that is so far beyond anything that we have.
Reportedly appear to exhibit unusual flight characteristics, appear to demonstrate advanced technology.
ARROW is the culmination of decades of DoD, intelligence community, and congressionally directed efforts to successfully resolve UAP encountered first and foremost by U.S. military.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to a special interview here on the Disclosure Team YouTube channel. I'm your host, Vinny Adams. So I want to give a shout out to the guys at Blaze TV, because on March 25th, it is UFO week on Blaze, where you can watch TV shows, documentaries, and all things UFO related, either on TV or on the Blaze app. Because I have a good relationship with Blaze, they asked me if I wanted to speak to anybody involved in any of the series, and I said, I'd quite like to speak to Giorgio Tsoukalos. So here we are. So if you're in the UK, just check out Blaze TV from March 25th, 8 p.m. every night for shows and documentaries all around the UFO subject. I hope you enjoyed this brief interview with Giorgio Tsoukalos. There we are. So Giorgio, I just wondered if you could first start off by explaining kind of what evidence you find the most compelling to support the ancient astronaut hypothesis.
So it is not just one piece of evidence because, we've never found so far a crashed spaceship or a ray gun somewhere hidden in a cave. But the ancient astronaut theory is wonderful insofar that it looks at all types of different pieces of evidence that then connect. For example, we have ancient origin traditions. We have these oral traditions and written traditions that speak that long ago our ancestors on all continents, not just in Africa or in South America, but also in ancient Greece, in Egypt, wherever, that there's somebody descended from the sky and imparted knowledge. Now, if there was only one of these stories out there, one could argue, okay, this is coincidence. But the fact of the matter is that in every single ancient origin story, whether it is oral or written, our ancestors are very specific in stating that someone descended from the sky and imparted this knowledge. And now we're accused that, our ancestors were great storytellers and they just needed to explain away their place in nature, and that's why they came up with these stories. And that suggestion to me is a little bit insulting because our ancestors knew exactly the difference between a thunderstorm and something else. And that is why they wrote it down. That's why they talked about it, because they wanted to make sure that future generations would know that, no, guys, This was not a thunderstorm. This was not, just some type of, a fire or something like this, but it was in fact something different. And that is why we're talking about it. And so, the ancient astronaut theory has only ever suggested that at some point we've had teachers, and somehow having teachers has become controversial because each and every single person listening to this interview, guess what? You've had teachers all your life. At first, it was your parents, and then you went to kindergarten, elementary school, and so on and so forth. And even if you show up on your first day at your job, it's not like you just walk in and do your thing. You need to be instructed first. Somebody has to teach you. So this idea that everything began in a vacuum, just forget it.
Thank you for that. And could you tell me, how does the modern UFO phenomenon relate to the ancient astronaut theory?
Yeah, and aren't we living in exciting times right now? I think it's a direct correlation, because who knows if whomever is here right now are the same guys that were here 5,000, 10,000, 25,000 years ago. And I really do think that that may be the case, because, the ancient astronaut theory suggests that at some point our DNA was artificially mutated by the visiting extraterrestrials. And, if you are doing such an experiment, or if you're doing such a thing, then that is some sort of a project. So I don't think that if we were to do this one day on a distant planet that can host some type of humanoid life, that we would abandon those people. Not abandon as in, you're on your own. Of course, we're on our own, but we would visit every once in a while to see how they're doing or what's going on, just to see the progress. So I really think that we've been under constant observation for at least the last 10,000 years. Because if I were to start something like this, then I'd be curious to watch what's going on. And so I think it's significant to note that UFO sightings or UAP sightings worldwide have increased exponentially only in the past 10 years. So this is really something that we should all pay attention to. And, by the way, 10 years ago, these topics were not on the front pages of newspapers and websites around the world, and they now are. So we've made incredible advancements in the reporting of these topics. And finally, people and reporters worldwide are taking these topics seriously. And I think it's about time that that happens. So I'm very happy with all the progress that we've made in essentially bringing these topics into the mainstream.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you think the UFO phenomena intersects with broader discussions about the nature of reality and consciousness?
Well, I mean, it definitely should wake us up, because, of course, there's often explanations that can be explained away with technologies that we have that are of human origin. But there are still cases where we can, sorry, there's a Ventura Boulevard. But there are still cases where, that we don't have the material sciences yet with which we could explain away that what we're seeing up in the skies is ours. Because if it were ours, well, then who is it? Is it us, the Americans? Is it you guys, the English? Or is it the Russians or the Chinese? And even if that is the case, then that would be a huge threat to national security. And so if you look at this from a material perspective, then, as far as we know, we don't have the material sciences yet to withstand the acceleration of some of these vehicles that sometimes, go from 10,000 feet to 80,000 feet in 1 second. I mean, they just shoot up. I mean, and whoever sits inside of these things, unless you have some type of an artificial gravity environment, our necks would snap if it's human, if a human body or a human pilot would be sitting in there, or they would turn, 90-degree angles, they would turn on a dime at those speeds. I mean, the cabin, Dr. Michio Kaku, the famous astrophysicist, has come forward and saying that, if we had these types of vehicles with today's materials, it would disintegrate, it would shatter, and we would turn into goo. And so, what is going on? And look, I agree that 90%, if not more, of UAP sightings most likely are ours, and there's secret programs that nobody knows about. So of course that happens. I mean, every new plane, any new fighter jet that is currently, for example, released as in a picture or in a press conference, in a hangar or something like that, I guarantee you, and this is not secret knowledge, this is a technology that's at least 2 generations old, and it is presented as the latest and the greatest. Well, so we are working on things, and by we, I'm not meaning we, but they are working on other technologies. But there are certain things or certain videos that we've seen where you cannot explain it away, or they blip in and out of reality, or they have some type of a cloaking mechanism. So something is going on, and it's also in combination with the so-called abduction reports. Everybody now talks about the UFOs, which is great, but not many people have yet addressed the abductions, because they are happening, and people come back with implants. And there are some abductees that where this has happened to them, not just once, but they've been abducted, experiencing this since they were little kids. So clearly something is going on. And to suggest that all of these people are lying and that all of these people are only experiencing sleep paralysis, you are insulting these people by saying that, because, who knows if it's true?
Yeah, absolutely. And would you say there are any commonalities between descriptions of ancient astronauts and modern depictions of extraterrestrial visitors?
Absolutely. I mean, there are countless of flying disc representations in ancient times. And how do you do this? You create a disc and you attach wings to it. Why? Because it flies. And when our archaeologists are saying that, oh, this is just for them to illustrate that this disc, it's the sun, and they put wings on it because the sun is up in the sky. I mean, you are insulting the intelligence of our ancestors, because they knew the sky, the sun was in the sky. But what they described was that this sun disk actually then came or detached from the sky and landed in front of them, and a hatch opened and somebody, or a portal opened, and somebody walked out of that disk that just descended from the sky. And they knew that the sun, while this was all happening, was still up there. So, to suggest that our ancestors didn't know what they were talking about, that to me is insulting. And I'm glad that more and more of the academics and the archaeologists are talking about this, because we've invited them on Ancient Aliens. And guess what? They've participated. And to me, had you told me 15 years ago that we'll have many, many archaeologists and anthropologists wanting to come on our show, I think we're doing something right.
And how do you see the internet and social media? Do you think it's affected the dissemination of information regarding this subject?
Yes, and unfortunately also the dissemination of disinformation, because, now with the advent of AI, there are, weekly I am being sent pictures of, some, a tribe somewhere with an alien standing next to them, or, some artifact. And so we are entering very interesting times right now, because I'm very familiar with pretty much all the ancient artifacts, and it's very rarely that something crosses my desk where I say, okay, I've never seen this one before. And this is now happening with the AI, and we all need to be very, very careful. I suggest that everyone should do an immediate Google search, a Google image search to, see, is there a match to some type of an ancient artifact for real? Because, I don't know what's going to happen here, because it's very strange right now with these new videos and new pictures of alleged artifacts, because they're not real. And so, I don't know how this is going to be handled, frankly.
Yeah, I agree. And how do sort of ancient astronaut theorists interpret accounts of celestial phenomena, say, seen in historical texts?
Well, I mean, there were many. I mean, you can go back as far back as the Sumerian times, and even in the Middle Ages, we have reports where thousands, not just one or two people, but thousands of people were witness to, for example, the events that happened in Nuremberg or in Basel, Switzerland in 1561, where, for example, you had thousands of people seeing these crosses up in the sky that were, quite frankly, having some sort of a dogfight up there. And, just truly amazing things where this was then reported in newspapers. And to say then, and this is what some of people today are doing, that thousands of people were under some sort of a mass psychosis, you are insulting those people, and you're suggesting that they didn't know what they saw. And so, what was it? And they even said in these reports or in these newspaper articles that these were not, a mass amount of meteors falling to the earth or something like that, because they changed directions. They chased each other up in the sky. And this was all witnessed by thousands of people. So, something is going on. And I think more and more people are coming on our side and exploring this from the perspective, well, perhaps this is extraterrestrial. And I think we all should, join that side, because they're here and they're also curious in finding out how will we react as a global entity. And I think we can handle it. We love learning about these things. And this idea that we would freak out, in my opinion, no longer holds true, because when the Navy, when the Pentagon Papers came out in 2017 in December about the Navy videos, that was, Monday, and on Tuesday morning, everybody went about their daily lives. Well, why? Because yes, everybody has to go to work, but at the same time, also, we know intrinsically it's hardwired in us that our true origin is out there. So it's just meeting our parents.
Yeah, I agree. I believe we can handle it too. My
Yes.
final question, Giorgio, would be, what role do you think government disclosure plays in shaping public attitudes towards UFOs?
Yes, look, and I think there's definitely something happening right now, especially if you would have told me 15 or 20 years ago or 25 years ago that one day there would be a congressional hearing and multiple congressional hearings in the U.S. Congress, I would have been like, okay, that would be great, but I don't think it'll happen. And it has happened in the last 2 years. So we are making tremendous advancements, and obviously there's also pushback. But at the same time, the discussion now is happening, and whoever thought that this process would be easy and that, the U.S. government would come forward in 1 second and say, yes, we know about aliens, you've not been following history. So of course, this is a slow process. And we are in this process called disclosure. Disclosure will never be a one-time event. Disclosure is a process. It takes a long time. And but I think we're in it. And we've made such advancements, because disclosure 10 years ago, barely anybody talked about these topics. And now we have congressional hearings with many senators and representatives genuinely interested in these topics. And I welcome them all into our vessel. And let's go and explore the stars, really. I mean, it's just an amazing exploration. And we all want to know what's going on. And I think we're all curious to learn the truth. And, you know, we can handle it. We can handle the truth.
Well, Giorgio, thank you so much for talking with me today. I really appreciate it.
Vinny, so great to see you again, and keep doing what you're doing. You are one of the voices that more people must listen to, because you are one of the light carriers.
Thank you so much.